I was so captivated, even though I've already seen it.
Yes.
And I usually like when I've seen something, I like to look to the person next to me all the time. We were doing that during the movie. Like,
oh yeah.
oh my God. But when the movie starts out, I did not expect to see Godzillasaurus.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would have been one of the coolest parts of the movie for me.
Right? What do I even say? Well, like,
spoiler review. We're talking about everything.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Like, what was your initial reaction right away?
At first, I thought, oh my God. And then when they showed the wide shot of him looking like a T-Rex, I was like,
yeah,
they're doing this origin. This is so cool.
Yes.
Because usually because when the bomb went off, you saw it in the ocean of the explosion happening and like his roar happened and his eye open.
Yes.
But this is like, I didn't expect him to start off with, he was at the beginning of the movie. I didn't think we'd see him for like 45 minutes.
Exactly.
One thing I love about this movie is knowing when Godzilla was coming. Because I told you before we saw it, I said, there's going to be something you notice every time Godzilla shows up, but there's a warning every time he does. And all these fish start rising up from the ocean, but they're like, because they've risen up so fast, they're like poofed. Like their insides are on the outside.
Their swim bladders essentially expanded and they'll float up.
Because of which is so cool because if you think about it, it ties into the end of the movie and how they defeat
Godzilla. Exactly. Just that massive change in pressure.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's so good. Cool. So it was nighttime, and when you first see him, I was like, okay, this is already one of my favorite versions of him ever. And he was absolutely terrifying.
He was.
He could not be stopped.
No.
And then the pilot, because there was a bunch of guys there who were fixing planes, they told him to get in his ship to fire the guns, the minigun, and he just couldn't do it, and he froze up, which is basically his whole PTSD throughout the whole movie of wanting to reclaim his own honor as well as the honor for his country.
Right. This to me is the best interpretation of a human character in a Godzilla movie. You follow him through the whole thing, and obviously as a viewer not of that time, you definitely sympathize with him. You're like, oh yeah, I don't want to go to war, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I hope he survives, I hope he does well. But you see the torment that he goes through this whole movie, and he doesn't freeze up once, he freezes twice. He abandons his duty. Mm-hmm. He lies about a malfunction in his plane, and then he freezes on the turret.
Yeah.
And everybody except for one guy on the island is dead.
Yeah.
So now he has all those people on his conscience. Oh, what was that? The first 25 minutes of the movie?
I would say 15.
50, yeah. You're like, oh, this is what we're getting into tonight.
And they let you know right away, this is not...
this is not your grandma's Godzilla movie, kids.
He's chomping and stomping, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
He was eating people. He was destroying things.
Yep.
It was scary.
It was.
It was scary. This is the first time in a while, like, I thought Godzilla was scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was this one, Shin, and the original.
Shin's disgusting.
He's just gross.
His final form is scary, but the rest of it was disgusting.
Yes. Yep.
But Shin the first time I watched Shin, I didn't like it at all because it was so disgusting. I'm like, I don't like this. This is not my version. My favorite version is the Heisei era.
Yes. Yep.
And
with
how he looks,
face.
Which is why this version, Godzilla Minus One, is my favorite design of all time. Because it brings me back to when I fell in love with Godzilla. It looks identical, but just more menacing and realistic.
Yep.
Because there's no suit, right?
Right.
Even though the suits in the late 80s, early 90s, they were the best they could have been. And it was so believable. Even if you watch them now, they're still believable.
Which I did.
Yeah.
and with Minus One, the way his muzzle kind of lifts up, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. You see the twitching, even the eye movements. It has that almost like dead stare in his eye. But there's something to it that makes it really alive. Mm-hmm. That scene in particular, when he's
swimming through the ocean, chasing the boat.
Behind the boat.
Oh my God.
when I saw that in the trailer, I thought, I cannot wait to watch this whole scene. And
it was an amazing scene. That scene was like 15 minutes.
Yeah. So much tension, such a good release. And it's daylight. You can actually see Godzilla fully.
It was daylight for the rest of the movie that he was in.
Yes. The morning or the nighttime scene at the beginning was the only dark one, right?
I believe so.
Because
they wanted to set it off as a scare, like he's a scary monster.
Yes. Because then the next big one was when he went to the city, right? And
the ocean was first.
The ocean was first, yes.
Then the city, yeah.
Yep. And then the next one was
after they had their whole plan of how to defeat him.
Yes.
And he comes to shore, and he's in the middle of that giant field. The field that he was in when he was our main character was flying around him.
Yeah.
It made me think of the old Godzilla films, because he's always in some kind of a field in those movies because of the suits and how they build their terrain and their buildings.
Yep.
But it brought me back right to the 90s of like him walking through this open field.
It reminded me very much of in Return of Godzilla, when Godzilla's going to the power plant. Mm-hmm. And he's just like trudging through the countryside, goes to it, destroys it, and then goes into the water.
Yeah. A menace.
How are we going through this movie? There's just so many things to talk about.
So after Godzillasaurus,
yep,
we get a shot of our hero. No, not really a hero. He's a disappointment to his country. But our main character going back to his hometown and seeing the mass destruction that Hiroshima has caused.
Yep.
A couple years goes by. Like he goes back to his hometown, and then we see 2-3 years go by, and then we see the bomb happen. Mm-hmm. Right? They don't kick it off with the bomb. We get a slow kind of maybe 25 minutes before the bomb even goes off. Yep. And we see this wide open shot of the bomb, and then we get an undershot of the sea when we see Godzilla's eye open, and then he hits the iconic roar. Yes. And then we cut to, oh no, like what is going to happen? And we don't see Godzilla for maybe another 20 minutes after that, because after this point, he meets a woman who has a child who's not hers. He creates this family of his own, but he doesn't really want this family, which is another point of his character, because he's so dishonored in himself, and he doesn't want to live.
Yep. He's so wrapped up in the shame that I can't settle down with this person, and this little girl that we're taking care of is not mine. And he's just so focused on this that he will abandon them at any moment. And he almost does.
Yeah.
Oh, like
and there's points in the story where she calls him dad.
Yes.
Like she's asking for him, and he's like, I already told you, don't call me that.
Yeah.
But she's like she's like a year old.
Right.
Cutest kid. She was crushing it.
She nailed it. She's going to be a
best actress in the movie. But yeah, he meets, this woman, and he gets to know her over the course, and then he gets a job.
Yep.
He needs to get a job and then she also wants to get a job, because she's like, what am I going to do? Just sit here all day? Because they have a neighbor who also takes care of the neighbor knew him before with the rest of the people in the town.
Yes.
So as they're rebuilding, they have, he's getting more money from this job that he takes, which is being a worker on a boat to go bring up all the mines from the war.
Yes. He's like a mine diffuser.
Yeah.
Which is a good paying job.
A good paying job.
Because it's so dangerous.
Yeah. But he didn't know going in what it would be. But he said, you get 3,000 yen or something per
cool
per like month or something. Yeah. But to them, that's so much money. And he slowly builds his house back, and he's with his family. But when he first shows up to the job, he thinks he's going to be safe on this like massive ship.
Yep.
And he shows up with this little crew of 3
on a wooden boat.
And he's like, what's going on here? And they're like, well, we can't go out in the ocean with a metal ship because the mines are magnetized to the ship and blow us up.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to go in the most
like archaic.
Boat,
but it's the safest that they can be.
Yeah. The crew, let me tell you, the characters of this movie are great.
They are.
I loved me and Adria after we walked out. We're like, sometimes you could care less, like King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
The American version, all those humans could care less about them. But once we finished, we're like, I loved every member of the crew.
Yes. Yeah.
It was such a good time watching this crew grow a bond and be a crew. You don't see Godzilla right away. When they first go out on the ocean on their first mission, they're just having a time on the ocean, which to me terrifies me. I can't. I'm in water. Deep sea, anything I can't see below water, that's not for me.
You're not doing a cruise.
They're doing their job. They're bringing up the mines with this latch they have on the boat. So when they go by it unhooks the mine to bring it to the surface, and they shoot it with a minigun.
Yes.
Which to me, I don't know if that's safe.
I don't think it's safe at all.
The string they use to unlatch the mine is like 200 yards or whatever.
Right. It's big.
So it's far away and the mines blow up. They're doing their thing like they normally do, bringing up the mines. And all of a sudden he looks over and starts to see fish come up from the water.
Uh-huh.
And I know what this was, but I didn't think you clued in on it yet. Like, this is the second time the fish appeared.
Right.
So I'm looking at you. I'm like, this is about to be the greatest time of your life right now. And then you're going off, and then he comes up from the ocean, and then the chase scene is so scary.
It's amazing.
And they did something in this movie I've never seen them do in a Godzilla film, which is how he heals.
Yeah, you're right.
So he's chasing them, and he gets a mine in his mouth.
Yep.
And our main character fires the minigun to blow up the mine in his mouth, and it destroys his entire side of his face.
Yes.
And I'm at the time of my first appearance, I'm like, that was it. This is how they beat him? Because he's just floating there, like he's slowly about to sink, and he's he's completely gone. His whole side of his face is blown off. And then 2 seconds later, you see like Wolverine.
Yeah.
All his cells just like
so good.
I wouldn't want to. It's like almost like a slurp. That's what how it did. It's like a slurp sound. It's like it formed back up. The scariest moment was when his eye filled back in and like he awoke him again. It was so terrifying.
I loved that because it was very surprising. Usually we see, he might get blown up and then that's the end of the scene.
Yeah.
We're not done.
No. Or back in the day, we just saw like parts of his skin flick off. Like he's not affected by anything, right?
Yep. But after that, did he kind of skulk away, or I can't remember?
Oh no, he was pissed.
He came back. He came back. Yeah.
But because the whole time they're trying to fight him off, they're calling for the Coast Guard.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So he's following them, and they're like, "Okay, what do we do? That was our only shot."
Yeah.
And then he starts to get up out of the ocean, which we're not going to get into how he floats in any Godzilla movie. To me, it's just how he does it. It's just he's always walking in water.
Yeah.
I don't care how deep the water is. To me, it's like a squirrel. How a squirrel runs across things and his tail balances him. I just think his tail is balancing him in the water. That's all it is.
That's fair. Yeah.
But he gets up, and all of a sudden the Coast Guard shows up, and these tankers, the missiles on this Coast Guard, probably the most powerful missiles I've seen. Like the impact they had on him, it was like, doof, doof. And like he felt the impact, Godzilla, when they hit him. He was like, doof, doof. And he fell into the ocean. Like everyone thought that was the end of him.
Yep.
And then for the first time, we see the atomic breath, but we don't actually see it.
Yep.
We see the glow because they think he disappears, right? They think that's it.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden you start to see the ocean glow.
Yeah.
And you get a shot back on our heroes, and they're all glowing blue, and they're like, what's going on? And then it was so fast. It was like a 2 seconds. The beam went up, and then and like a massive explosion, and the ship disintegrated into nothing. And there's like this big smoke cloud of nuclear energy.
Yep. Already we see like how much power he has with that one blast.
It's the most powerful atomic breath I've ever seen.
Yes. And when he does it later, just the shake of the camera, how fast it moves. Because sometimes when we see it, it's slow, right? It kind of just But this one makes sense. It's quick because it's light and energy, so it should be traveling really, really fast.
Yeah.
It just looks so good. Oh.
It's perfection.
Yep.
Now, let me tell you something. The soundtrack in this movie, there's 2 times. Okay, the rest of the music is incredible and it has a nice ambiance, but there's 2 Godzilla tracks that everybody has known from 1954.
Yep.
And they used them perfectly, both of them perfectly in this movie.
Yep.
And I didn't think I'd get to hear the second one, but the first one you get the classic dum, 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 dum. His villain theme, right?
Exactly.
That's the theme they play in every Godzilla movie when he's acting as a villain.
Yep.
And he comes into the city because I love the shot of the wife when she's on the train, and you could see Godzilla in the reflection of the train window.
In the mirror, the window. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I wasn't I saw remember in the trailer when the train car hits the tracks, like he throws it. I forgot about that when we started watching the movie, and when it happened, I laughed because it's just so awesome. There's so much weight to everything in this movie. I don't know how they did it. I don't know what physics engine they used, but man, it just comes hurtling through the sky and just like sits straight up and then crashes down. And we always have to have the close encounter with death for one of our characters.
Yeah.
She's in the train. She's holding on for dear life.
Yeah. But then luckily she dropped because she sees the water blower. So she drops.
Yes.
And gets to safety. But man, we get the shot. And now they tease this in some of the trailers. The trailer they showed for -1 when we first watched it, it was like 35 seconds. When I sent it to you, I'm like, this is all we need to see.
Yep.
It was a shot of the train, and it was the shot of him munching down on the train. And that was the end of the trailer. There was a teaser they showed the spines starting to power up, and I was like, I don't want to see the end of this. I don't want to see it because it's going to ruin it for me, and I don't want to see the breath, and I didn't.
Good.
I watched that part of the trailer, but they didn't show him breathing. I just saw the first tail, but then I shut it off. I was like, I don't want to see it. I want the first experience to be in the theater, and it was. And when he charges this beam up, this is the first time we've seen his spikes do this, where they eject like a nuclear bomb, like a pin, like they go up.
Yeah.
Like they eject from his body.
I was surprised about that because at first I thought it was kind of, it was odd because what does that?
Yeah.
But because it's Godzilla, it's this nuclear abomination. It's like that fits. That works perfectly. It's almost mechanical, right?
Well, that's what he said. He wanted to make it feel like how a nuke goes off when the pins go in to blow the bomb up, right? Because when he gets to the top, he sucks in all that air, and then he unleashes the most devastating attack I've seen on screen.
Yep.
And it launches so fast, but if you noticed at the end, it kind of like flames out.
Yes.
At the end of the beam because it's so far away from him. Mm-hmm. But it's so fast, and then when it blows up, it creates a nuclear explosion.
It creates like that mushroom cloud.
The mushroom cloud.
Oh.
And I've never seen that happen before because most of the Godzilla movies we grew up with, he would shoot the beam and it would just like spark, and the enemy would like fall backwards kind of thing.
Yep.
But this, and then the scene right after that, where he's looking up at his destruction, and the black mushroom cloud is there, and he's just like appreciating what he's done to this city.
Yeah.
It's one of the best shots in the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's almost like a job well done for him. He's like, pat on the back.
Mm-hmm. But then one of the controversial moments is when the nuke goes off.
Yeah.
Not the nuke. His nuclear breath goes off, and the nuclear wave from the explosion kills a bunch of people.
Yep.
Our hero is with his wife. He goes to Giza to save her.
Yeah.
But she pushes him in between buildings.
Yeah.
To rescue him from the wave, and she disappears. The
so
shockwave blows her away.
Just blown away.
Which she should have. Realistically, she should have. But there has to be some kind of scientific, because everyone else disintegrated.
Yeah.
But we have to have something to. She comes back at the end. Everybody, I'm just going to say it now. She comes back at the end, and he gets a note from a telecarrier.
Yep.
There's somebody who needs to see you, so he goes to the hospital. She's there.
Yep.
But what's cool about it is like she's all patched up, and she's like, you could tell something's wrong with her.
Yeah.
And he gets towards her and hugs her, and he loses his mind because he finally has something. By the end of the movie, he realizes there's things he loves, and things he wants to fight for and live his life.
Yep.
Great character arc. But then we see on the side of her neck. I didn't really clue in on it the first time. I saw it, but the second time we saw it in IMAX, the screen's so big and it was so close to us. I actually saw it crawl up her neck before I just thought it was there. But yeah, the radiation from his blast, I think, is mutating her.
Yep.
And not mutating her in a way where she's going to transform, but I think it's kind of the same way Hiroshima over the years killed more people due to its effects.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this blast is eventually, he thinks he has everything now. Our main character has his wife back, his daughter's there, but she's not going to live. Right. She's eventually going to pass due to the radiation that she did endure.
Yep.
Which is also terrifying and heartbreaking for our main hero,
tragic.
But it's also at the same time they could turn it into like she transforms into something, because I know the director wants to make a sequel, and he's like, it would be cool if we can like bring another monster into this and like really dive into the mythos of Godzilla more.
Yep.
So like they could do something cool with that, like Biollante. They could do something along that route where she kind of her DNA morphs with
plant matter,
whatever. But yeah, she has radiation poisoning and it's crawling up her skin, and that's how that scene kind of ends.
Yep.
We get to the part where they're trying to lure him in, and he comes faster than he's supposed to. So then our hero gets in the plane, he takes off, and he's chasing him around because then he needs to lure him back into the ocean for their plan to work.
Yep.
And this scene was so cool. This almost rivals the first scene of him in the water, but he's getting in there and you could see him. I loved how he had more personality in this than usual. But when he's following the plane, because our hero is just doing this like back and forth, making sure he's keeping up, Godzilla's like following him, but his head's like out of the water, like following the plane in the air.
Yes.
Like tracking and making sure he's keeping an eye on. And he finally gets to the point where all the tankers are there.
Mm-hmm.
These massive ship tankers. And there's 3 of them. And Godzilla comes out of the water because they know he has power. They're like, we have to figure out how to draw out his power because they figured out that he needs to regenerate after he uses it. So there's a time period after he unleashes the atomic breath that they have in order to have a better chance of making this plan work without them being destroyed.
It's hyper beam.
Yeah,
it's
hyper beam.
Recharge turn.
Yeah. So they send this first ship out, but you think there's people on that ship, but they've rigged it so that the boat just drives for itself and they've tied up the steering wheel and they let it go. And Godzilla comes up out of the water and unleashes his breath again and destroys the ship. It's obliterated. And everybody's holding on for dear life on these other boats because of how big the blast is.
Yep.
But at that point, they have these the string wrapped around these boats, and the boats have to make a big circle around him and cross paths so that when they do cross paths and come back, they can tie a knot around him. And they end up doing it. They sink him. But before they do that, before they eject him down, he's recharged again. So he's loading back up his atomic breath, and he gets to the top, and then the captain yells, "Now." And he hits the button, and Godzilla sinks as he's about to unleash his breath. And I think when I was next to you and you saw this part, when he goes to the middle of the ocean and everything goes, his power goes, poof, everything goes black. You were like, oh.
Yeah. It's just so like, it's so magical. Just how like the timing of everything in this movie is so perfect. It's so dialed in. Mm-hmm. Oh,
because right before that, when they launched the boats, I got so amped. I could feel it coming before they were ready to start their plan after Godzilla unloaded his atomic breath. The captain's there and he's like, do it. And then it hit one of my favorite Godzilla themes. And me and Adria in the theater were like, let's go.
It's that song just amps you up.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know if I'm happy, if I'm gonna pee myself. Like you're just so amped up and ready to go. And
I didn't think I would hear that song, that track in there, but I could feel it coming in the music underneath. And I was like, yes, is it happening? Yeah. And then they timed it perfectly with they slowed the music down to nothing and the captain goes now. And then the music hit and they started launching their plan. And I was like, oh. It's like at the same time, it's like, let's get him. But at the same time, don't kill him.
Exactly. Yeah, you might need him later. Oh, yeah. So good.
So yeah, they bring him down and then they bring him up. But then they realize he's like bit through.
Yes.
So they have to use the boats to pull him.
Right.
And when they pull him up, he's covered in ice. Because when he reaches the point of air, oxygen's freezing him.
Yep.
And this is the point where our hero comes down. This is basically the end of the movie. Their plan didn't work. So there's only one thing left for our hero to do is sacrifice himself. Because Godzilla's slowly recharged. He's recharging again his atomic breath. And there's a moment where the camera pans in front of him. And he's full of ice. And he's like very animalistic. And his eyes are all white. It's the scariest, coolest image I've ever seen.
It's amazing.
Where his spines are all blue. And his mouth is open. And his eyes are pitch white. And he's ready to just destroy.
I forgot about the white eyeballs. That was, it was like he was like a zombie.
Yeah.
It's so
cool. It was like a callback to the Millennium era, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Out Attack. Where he was like a demon. Right.
Yes.
You know, he had that kind of look to him, but it was so terrifying. And our hero's going in and he's ready. You could tell he's ready to sacrifice himself.
Yep.
He charges up the nuke that's now put inside of the plane.
Yep.
And the impact it had when he unleashes the breath and when the plane goes into his mouth.
Oh. Yep.
Massive. Everything just stops and Godzilla's just like hanging there.
Yeah.
Right? The explosion happens on the inside, so nothing is like, there's no waves or nothing.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, where's our hero? We know he ejected because there's a split second where you saw it happen.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, the plane falls out of Godzilla's mouth, and then he just starts falling apart.
Yeah,
and
he's
everybody
like
starts
crumbling.
cheering.
Oh,
And then we see our hero, because no one knows he's alive, but then we see our hero coming down with a parachute, and everyone's cheering, and Godzilla's falling apart and
so
falling
cool.
to the depths of the ocean.
Yep.
And we get the scene of our main hero, like we talked about before, getting the note to go see his wife.
Yep.
And then we cut to the ocean. Guess what? Godzilla's body's there, all the pieces, and it starts reforming like it did at the beginning, and they cut to black.
It's so good. It's so good.
And then me and you waited. I told you we got to wait for the end of the credits, because at the end of the credits, you hear a couple stomps.
Yes.
Loud stomps. Like
They
IMAX was so loud. And then you hear his roar, like he's telling you to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we have to wait. It's so cool to have a movie end after the credits and hearing that roar one last time before you leave the theater.
Yep.
It was, it was such a good experience. And seeing the Toho symbol at the beginning, still looking like from the 60s. They didn't update it at all. It was all grainy.
Oh, I love it.
It had such a feeling of home. Like, this is so cool that in 2023, I get to see a movie like this for the big screen.
Yeah. No, it's a very tasteful movie. It's an artistic, story-driven movie that happens to have Godzilla in it. And that's what I think makes it so good for that style of Godzilla.
I'm so happy it did well. It made over $100 million worldwide for a Japanese subtitled movie about Godzilla.
Good.
And the budget was $15 million, and it kept extending its days.
Yes.
It went all the way to February, dude.
Yep. That's unreal.
And like at the beginning of February, they're like 1 week only. We're releasing the black and white version.
Yeah.
I didn't get to go see the black and white version minus color, and I wanted to, but there wasn't showing around where I was. And I don't think it was showing in Windsor either.
I don't think so.
But I hope they put it on the Blu-ray because I want to watch that version so bad.
Yep.
But it lasted 2 months. 2 months in the theaters. December 1st to February 1st.
What timeline is this?
It was only supposed to last 1 week.
Yeah.
And it just kept going and making more money. And I'm so happy that it got an Oscar nomination for visual effects.
Absolutely.
Because it deserves the recognition.
Yep.
And it deserves the money it made.
The fact that it was at the Oscars, a Godzilla movie got to the Oscars. It's not a Marvel movie. It's not a Disney movie. It's a Toho Godzilla movie. Like, it's so cool to see.
What a movie.